And in our last segment for this week's second Capital Outlook, it's our pleasure to be joined by Wyoming's new auditor, Auditor Kristi Racines. Welcome, Madam Auditor.
Thank you so much, Craig. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you. You've been in the office for a few days. How's the transition went for you? How's that process worked?
You know, really good. Transitions are, by their nature, a challenging time. Humans don't love change, as you know. So, but it's been good. It's a gap. I'm learning about the staff. They're learning about me, but mostly it's been overwhelmingly positive.
You really ran on. You stated very clearly in your campaign that you were concerned about accountability, efficiency, and commitment to the job. But certainly it all, to me, revolved around transparency of the office. In fact, there are lawsuits pending against your predecessor. What is your vision now that you've been in the office just a little bit on the work Wyoming needs to do to really become more transparent? We're not rated very well by some organizations today.
No, that was definitely a theme of the summer for not just me, but everyone running for state auditor. I think it's really come out that this is a gap we have, being able to produce particularly financial information quickly and in a way that folks can understand, so that we know where our tax dollars are going. As far as vision for the office, there's two issues that we're dealing with right now. So first, there is the active lawsuit, and that just had to do with the state auditor producing 5 years worth of expenditure records and getting those out the door. So that needs to be taken care of, obviously, but also going forward. One of the reasons that was so challenging is there's so much private information mixed in with data that can be public. Right now, that's a really manual process to try to sort that out. For instance,
somebody who may have had mental health services that the state paid for, they wouldn't want their name to be known that they were receiving such services, so there's some confidentiality things there.
Absolutely. There's some questions of confidentiality of what folks want to be public, but I mean, a lot of that is just protected by law, so it would actually be a violation of laws if it were to be released. You know, it's either private health information, things like that, but that is intermingled in the system with a lot of records that can and should be public. So again, divvying that up right now is a very manual process. It can be done, but it takes a real human to sort through those records and sift them out. So we have the issue of looking backwards and making sure that information is available, but also looking for a more comprehensive solution going forward so that it's not such a manually intensive process.
You and Governor Gordon, prior to the election, announced that you thought a working group should be created to enhance transparency. Are you following through with that? Where is that particular process at?
Absolutely. We've had one meeting of the working group so far, and we have another one scheduled this week. We're going to be hearing from actually Open the Books to hear about their work in this area, and then also really working to define some of our first goals and the scope that we want the working group to tackle. As you know, one of the biggest challenges of some of these groups is there's so many things to be done. There's so many improvements that can be made, but we need to focus on a couple things to start out with. Low-hanging fruit where we think we can make some strides and get some momentum in that direction.
From what you know now, and I know that it's only been a small amount of time that you've been in office, can you move Wyoming's needle on transparency in your first term?
In my first term, I think absolutely. You know, I talked a lot over the summer, and I used sort of a silly example, but I think some folks envision a big red transparency button that somebody was just refusing to push. You know, just push the button and it'll all be out there. Unfortunately, there's some real limitations to the data and the systems that we have that avoid that. You know, that make that not possible. I purposely avoided saying I can fix this in one day because I don't think it can be. If you fixed it in one day, we would be releasing a huge amount of information that is not public and should not be public, like those private health payments or whatever. Can we move the needle on this in 4 years? Absolutely, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Madam Auditor, you'll also now sit on boards that start to make decisions about public infrastructure needs around the state. How do you go about educating yourself? This is a big state.
Oh, it's huge.
And your background, you are a CPA and a Spanish major. And we know you can speak some Spanish in college, but there's a lot to learn about the infrastructure needs of Wyoming. How do you plan to channel through that process? Because you'll start to be making important decisions very soon.
Absolutely. We have our first SLIB meeting this Thursday.
State Land and Investments Board meeting.
Yes, yes. So I apologize. You should never use acronyms.
There are plenty in Cheyenne
wide
that
audience.
I think our viewers do know about.
I go about it the way I would learn about anything. I know there's going to be a steep learning curve. I know a little, but I think it's more important to recognize what I don't know. You know, in my prior life, I audited the Business Council, and that was my first interaction with learning about the way some of these grants and loans worked, the payback on those, and some of the projects they went out to. So what I've been doing, you know, since the election is literally reading statutes, reading grant programs, and reading rules relating to those programs. You know, as far as learning about the individual communities, I've been meeting with stakeholders that are interested in the specific projects coming before SLIB, before the State Loan and Investment Board. Apart from that, I just plan to go out and visit communities. I hope I have a good background living in a variety of sizes of towns. I know I live in Cheyenne now, which is the big city, but I've also, you know, I was raised in substantially smaller towns. So hopefully I will at least have the right mindset to be able to make sure I remember how different our communities are and how different their needs are.
Were there staffing decisions you needed to make, Madam Auditor, when you first came on board?
Absolutely. So one of the auditor's office is relatively small comparatively. It's about 25 people, but the most important decision that the state auditor makes in that regard is choosing of a deputy.
And you've done that?
Yes, yes. So I have Edie Troutwine joining me as deputy, and she's going to be fantastic.
Both of you had experience together in the Wyoming Judicial Branch at the Supreme Court.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Your background, Madam Auditor, you have a CPA.
Correct.
It's not a requirement for the job. From what you know about the job, should it be?
You know, I think it's extremely helpful to have a really strong financial accounting background for the job. A CPA is checking a box that's nice. I don't necessarily think it should be a requirement of the job.
Your office today is not where it will be a few months from now. You'll be moving to the remodeled Hirschler building. What are your thoughts on the need to move from where you're at to where you're going to be?
I think everyone is excited. As you know, there's been some challenges for many agencies trying to find temporary space, you know, outside the Capitol and the Hirschler building while they're working on that. So I know that you know, we anticipate being in the rented space for another, you know, 6 to 8 months, but I think that the staff is very eager to you know, actually call somewhere home and grow roots, because I think that target has moved quite a few times. So
I'm not exaggerating, and I think you'll back me up, but when you go see your receptionist, the floor in her office is tilted.
Yes, it was tilted. There was a platform built to...
And that platform is a triangle. It's not... am I wrong?
It's so she doesn't roll away.
And nor will her pencils or everything else. So it might be a good time.
It's served the purpose for sure, but everyone is very, very excited to get back into the Hirschler building. One of the other things right now too is we're on 2 different floors, and that physical separation is tough when we really are all working towards the same goal, and it's just easier to stay together when we'll be all together.
Conclude back to where we started. You're going to try to make your office more efficient, more transparent, to be more accountable to Wyoming citizens. Do you understand well enough the fiscal needs that will require? Do you plan that there'll be some expenses coming from your office to then realize these efficiencies?
There will be some expenses involved in that. You know, I think the gold standard, the goal would be to have a very easy to use public-facing website where you can go in and see data about expenditures, about, you know, anything you want, about contracts, that sort of thing. You know, software and management of those things and hosting of those sites usually cost money. Is it something that we can do in-house? That will certainly be an option, you know, we explore. I think it's a question of what sort of product do we want? What do we want the sustainability of that product to be? Homegrown systems are fantastic in cost, But as we've learned in the state, sometimes those are problematic down the road when no one knows how to work on them or no one knows the platform on which they were built, that sort of thing. So a request for proposal has gone out, and we have responses back to build a transparency platform for the state. Those have not been opened. We're working through that procurement process, which is important. So the dollar figure that this actually runs, I don't have today. I think, regardless, I'm hoping we can make some strides even without a whole lot of investment.
Madam Auditor, when you're ready to show off that system, we'll come visit again.
Absolutely. I'll call you first.
We would love to be a part of that. It's an important issue for Wyoming.
Yes, absolutely.
We appreciate your time with us today on
Thank you so much for having me.
Best wishes in your new position.
Thanks,
Thank you
Craig.
so much.